Okay, so today we're tackling a really big topic: how to manage your energy when you're living with a chronic illness. It's a journey that forces you to completely rethink how you look at activity, at rest, and even at your own body. So, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the energy crash itself to really get what's going on. Then, we'll talk about this idea of an energy envelope, look at the real-world tools for managing it, deal with the challenge of an illness no one can see, and finally, find a new path forward. First up, the energy crash. And I really want to stress this. We are not talking about being tired after a long week. This is something else entirely. It's a deep, overwhelming exhaustion that literally changes your life. This quote from someone with myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME/CFS, just says it all, doesn't it? Try to imagine that feeling. A hangover, a bad flu, and jet lag, all hitting you at the same time. It's a full body shutdown that's almost impossible for a healthy person to wrap their head around. At the very heart of this is a vicious cycle called post-exertional malaise, or PEM. Basically, it means your symptoms get way worse after you use any kind of energy, physical or even mental. And here's the cruelest part: it's delayed. You might feel fine right after doing something, but then hours or even days later, it hits you. A simple walk to the shop could land you in bed for the next 2 days. The punishment just doesn't fit the crime. This delay creates a perfect trap, what everyone calls the boom and bust cycle. You have a good day, so you think, great, I'm going to catch up on everything. That's the boom. But you've spent energy you didn't really have, so inevitably, you bust. You crash hard and are forced to rest for days. Then the cycle just starts all over again, and it can actually make you sicker over time. So, how in the world do you break that cycle? Well, that brings us to our second section, your energy envelope. And this means you have to throw out the old rulebook. The whole push through the pain idea, forget it. You're playing a totally different game now. So, let's just state the obvious problem here. If pushing harder is the worst thing you can do, what's the alternative? Well, you have to stop fighting your body and start managing it. You have to learn to live inside something called your energy envelope. This is probably the best analogy I've ever heard for it. Think of your body like a smartphone with a busted battery. You can leave it plugged in all night, but it's never going to get to 100%. And then, as soon as you start using it, that power level just plummets. And that brings us to the one strategy that works: pacing. You see, instead of trying to force that faulty battery to act like it's brand new, which only leads to a crash, pacing is about respecting its limits. It's a huge mental shift. You stop pushing through, and instead, you carefully balance every bit of activity with rest, just to stay within the energy you actually have. The goal isn't to do more. The goal is to be stable. Okay, so this sounds great in theory, right? But how do you do it? Let's get into the pacing toolkit. We're talking about real, practical strategies that people are using every single day to manage this new reality. And you know what? Technology can be a massive help. Just listen to this from a user on Reddit. He said his Garmin watch became his secret weapon. It was, and I'm quoting here, scary how accurate it has been for helping him see a crash coming and actually avoid it. So what was he actually tracking? He'd watch his daily stress scores, making sure not to go into the red. He'd use his watch's body battery feature to make sure he wasn't running on fumes. But the real key, the biggest hell, was his resting heart rate. If he saw it jump by just 5 or more beats per minute from its normal rate, that was a huge red flag. It meant he'd overdone it and had to stop and rest right then to prevent a crash. But here's the thing: pacing isn't just about how many steps you take. Remember that faulty phone battery? Well, a stressful conversation or a difficult emotional day drains it just as fast as a long walk. So setting boundaries is just as crucial as tracking your heart rate.
And that leads us to maybe the ultimate pacing tool: learning to just say no. Being able to turn something down without feeling guilty, without launching into a whole long, draining explanation. That's not being selfish. When you have limited energy, that's a critical survival skill.
This whole need for boundaries leads us right into one of the biggest, most frustrating parts of this experience: the invisible wall. You're trying to manage this incredibly difficult condition, but you have to do it in a world that frankly just doesn't get it because they can't see it. Oh man, this phrase. Anyone with an invisible illness has heard this more times than they can count. And maybe people mean well, but what it feels like is a total dismissal of your reality. It reinforces this idea that to be truly sick, you have to look sick. So what do you say to that? Well, one blogger had a pretty brilliant comeback. Instead of getting defensive, she just flips it back with a simple question. So, what exactly does chronic illness look like? It's a gentle way to challenge their assumptions. And this invisibility has huge consequences, especially at work. When over 2,000 people with ME/CFS were polled, look what they said helped the most. Flexible hours, working from home, reduced hours, and right there at number 3, regular breaks specifically for pacing. These aren't wild requests. For many, they're the only things that make staying employed even possible. Okay, so that brings us to our final section, a new way forward. After all of this, the tracking, the pacing, the boundary setting, the constant self-advocacy, what's the result? What's the payoff for all that incredibly hard work? Well, let's circle back to that Reddit user and his watch. The results he posted are, and there's no other word for it, stunning. Before he started the strict pacing, he was managing about 3,000 steps a day, and he needed 16 hours in bed to recover. Just 4 months later, after meticulously living inside his energy envelope, he was walking over 11,000 steps a day and only needed a normal 8 or 9 hours in bed. To put a number on that, that's almost a 300% increase in his daily activity level. Now, he's very clear, and everyone in this community is clear, pacing is not a cure. But it is a way out of that horrible boom and bust cycle. It's a path to stability. It's a new kind of freedom that you find by respecting your limits. And that really leaves us with this final, powerful idea. It completely redefines what healing even means. It's not some finish line you cross and then you're done. It's a practice. It's a conscious, daily, lifelong commitment to listening to your body and keeping things in balance. And you know what? That's probably a lesson that all of us could stand to learn.